Today on Craze, we are talking about Crit with Chris Sahloff. And George will be back in a second. Let's get it.
We are the only show for independent all around, giving you a platform. Spread your word downtown. Crazy place to promote to your fans. Dream of Medina and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your man to listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we never miss a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the craze. If you are an independent, catch the craze. Making moves on your own, catch the craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the craze. Join the movement, catch the craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. Now you want to do it. Catch the craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. I'm your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and I am with George will be back soon. So let's start that over again. We're going to be talking to Chris Sahloff about Crit on a Kickstarter. So we'll be talking to him very soon in about 15 minutes. And George will be with us soon too. He's actually on his way home. So Chris is a return guest, and his campaign launches in a couple of weeks. So today is October 30th. And welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. If you are new to this show, if you like the show, please subscribe. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, share it with a friend. Anyway, so have you signed up for, have you pledged? Have you backed? There's an alien in my toilet right now running on Kickstarter. We're on day 10 on Kickstarter live right now. There's an alien in my toilet, book number 3, I Chihuahua, and Do These Monsters on Planet Cthulhu. This is a two-part. These are 2 stories on one campaign. Right, so it's part 3 of There's an Alien in My Toilet, I Chihuahua, and it's part 1 of Do These Monsters on Planet Cthulhu. And so if you really enjoy Do These Monsters on Planet Cthulhu, you'll get part 2 in January, but it's up to you. So in the surveys, you'll let me know what you think. But yes, so the campaign is live now. I would love to tell you how it's going. I don't know because this is the past and we're talking about the future. But check it out. The link is in the summary as well. So what else is going on? In a couple of weeks, I will be at the Dallas Fan Festival, which is run by Fan Expo. And it's a 3-day event, and it's in downtown Dallas. And I'm excited. I'll be in Artist Alley. I'll be there with Duty. And again, doing our thing. Come down, see me in Artist Alley. It's going to be fun and exciting. And then right after that, the week after, so 2 weeks in a row, back to back, I'll be at the Cowtown Comic Con. And that's going to be off the chain. So I've done already 3 events in Texas. I've done the Fan Expo. I've done the Denton Art Expo. And I've done the Arlington Comic Fest. And the promoters for the Cowtown Comic Con came and introduced themselves to me, invited me to the event. We're excited. They follow me on social media. They're going to be on the show on Catch the Craze podcast. I'm going to be talking to them about their event. So I thought that was pretty cool. In fact, I met a lot of different promoters out here in Texas that actually came up to me, came up to the table, talking to me about the event. And that's very different than on the East Coast. In the East Coast, you got people working for the promoter that are just handing out flyers to promote their shows. But these guys actually came, personalized it, introduced it, talked about the benefits of being at the event and all that other stuff. So that was pretty cool. So I'm excited about that. So check that out. And let's see. I'm excited. There's a lot going on with Catch the Craze podcast. We got a lot of guests coming up. If you haven't checked out the shows, we have the What's in the Box. Not sure if we're bringing that back. So for anybody out there, not sure just yet, because What's in the Box, it was a way for us to promote the indie creators' books. But what we found was the creators weren't promoting it to their fan base. So we would go and feature their books on What's in the Box, but they weren't actually going out there and communicating to the fact that hey, we were spotlighting them. So it didn't seem like there was a benefit to it outside of just the time it took to produce the content to promote that. So that's on hiatus right now. The Crazy and Less is back. And we're going to continue that. And the Morning Brew. If you haven't joined us on the Morning Brew with the Crazy Crew every Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, please join us. That is basically where we chat with you, a live audience, at 9 a.m. with a cup of coffee. And we talk about a lot of things that's happening in pop culture and comics, film, and entertainment. And, we get your feedback and we debate. And sometimes we have lively conversations. And it's a really good way to start the morning, especially if you're going to work. You drive and listen to us. It's pretty dope. So we're excited about that. So outside of that, again, we're going to be talking to Chris about Crit, Caffeinated Chaos, AD&D adventure story, coming to Kickstarter right now. The landing page is up. If you haven't done so already, sign up. The link is in the summary. Check it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about Chris. Again, he's no stranger to Catch the Craze. He's been here before. He's a friend of ours. Or like the Mafia says, a friend of mine, friend of ours. What is it? Which one is it? Let's get it popping. So you should subscribe to Catch the Craze. Why? I'll let these guys tell you.
It's Monty Moore. I'm a 30-year comics veteran in comics, games, and movies, and you've been watching one of my absolute favorite podcasts, Catch the Craze.
You are watching Catch the Craze.
What am I listening to?
And you're listening to Catch the Craze.
Where are all the indies at? A Catch the Craze podcast.
What are you watching?
I'm watching Catch the Craze.
What are you going to do?
Subscribe now to Catch the Craze, the #1 show online for independent.
Have you subscribed to?
You are an independent. Catch the craze. Making moves on your own. Catch the craze. On your grind in the streets. Catch the craze. Join the movement. Catch the craze.
Welcome, Chris. What's up, buddy? Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Hey, what's going on?
What's going down with you? So for the audience who are new to Chris, give us a little update on who you are and what you do.
So Christopher Michael, I am the creator of Crit. It's a comic book based on a D&D game that I created with my friends. So let's see, 2019, we hadn't played D&D together in about 10 years, and I was actually playing Spider-Man on PS4 and said, hey, this would translate really well into D&D. We can finally play superheroes in D&D. I called everybody, and we played one game. It was awesome. Had to continue playing. We're going on 4 years now, playing the same game. And the whole story was just so chaotic. I had to make a book about it. And so here we are. The seventh issue is being released. We have an issue 0, which always throws me off, that issue 0. So it's like, hey, it's book 6, but really it's the 7th issue.
Yes, I had trouble. I eliminated issue 0s from my portfolio because it always confused people especially with Kickstarters. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what? I got tired of explaining it because it could just confuse people. So from this point on, with designated in my toilet, I started with issue number 1. Yeah, I was reading your rule book for your gameplay. It was too technical for me. See, I'm not that bright. So I was like, man, it looks like it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
So how much time and research did it take for you to really understand how to put this gameplay together for your project?
Well, we have in development time probably close to 800 or 900 hours at this point into just the development of the game itself. That's not the comic book. The comic book is a full-time job for me.
Right.
If I'm not working, if I'm not with my family, I'm drawing, and I dedicate anywhere from a minimum of 2 hours to a maximum of 10 hours a day, sometimes drawing for the book. That's not just for the book. I had to teach myself how to draw to do all this. So every time you flip a page, I've had to learn how to do that stuff. I have no formal training. I've never been to art school. I never even thought of being an artist. I like to doodle, my wife will tell you she never even really knew I was into art until this came along. As a kid, I always, I tried to draw X-Men when Jim Lee was doing it. And I was like, oh, this is fun, because I knew how to draw. My father, my mother, everyone in my family was an amazing artist. And I tried to do it once, and it looked like garbage to me. Like I had skewed the pictures. I was probably 10 years old. Right. And I finished my piece of art, and I held it up to X-Men, and I was like, it doesn't look the same. I'm crap. I'm done. And I went into like abstract stuff. I just started drawing shapes. And so for about 15 years, I would just draw shapes on top of shapes on top of shapes until I could see an image. And then I would draw within the image. It was very like weird artwork that I would do. And so no one really knew that I wanted to do comic books. I didn't even really know it until this came along. And I really just wanted to draw my friends being idiots. It was just so much fun for me that I said, hey, this has to go on paper. And the original idea wasn't even to give it out to the masses. It was just for us. It was something that, as a dungeon master, if you talk to really anybody that plays D&D, there's every campaign since I've been playing going on 15 years. Somebody always says, oh, this would be great as a TV show, or this would be great as a cartoon, or this would be great as a book, or this would be great as this. I'm just the first one in our group of friends that decided to freaking do it. So, right. As far as the manual, that it's still in beta form. We're level 17 now. So we're beta testing every level before it gets released. And we're going to hit level 20 probably in the next couple months. And then that way it's balanced. We're still going back and balancing the classes to make sure that when people play the game, you don't have one character that just breaks everything. And as far as it being too technical, on this next Kickstarter, I'm doing a tier where I will have 5 people. And so it's going to be 5 random people that play Crit together, and I will DM it, and so will Brad. I've offered some of the guys to come in and DM with me because Brad and Austin, who play Caliber and Spectre in the book, they have a lot of DM knowledge, and they've helped me with a lot of the technical aspects. And so we're going to not only just show you guys how to play D&D, but also, answer any questions that go along with, Dungeons and Dragons. I would say the coolest thing to come out of this isn't just people reading my book. It's people saying, hey, you maybe want to check out Dungeons and Dragons. I've wanted to check this out for a long time, or I saw it on Big Bang Theory or Stranger Things, and reading Crit made it sound like this would be fun. And so then I'll get the next question, well, how do I play? And so I've actually had inbox chats back and forth with people, giving them videos and just tutorials on how to get into D&D, because it's something that I hold near and dear. Right. And, somebody recently asked me, why is Crit important to me? And it's because after 10 years of not seeing my friends, D&D brought us back together. We've been 4 years every month playing the same game, and we didn't see each other for 10 years. Some of us didn't even talk for 10 years. Wow. And so it's really cool to be able to bring everybody back together, and we always have this central thing that we enjoy doing together, which is Dungeons and Dragons.
That's fantastic. I want to touch upon the whole teaching yourself how to draw. Mm-hmm. It requires a lot, really training your eye, right? Mm-hmm. And hand-eye coordination, and a lot of what is that the word I'm looking for? Concentration, right? So there's an extreme level of focus. Was this because of financial, you didn't want to outsource, that you said, I want to take the burden on and train myself to do this?
The idea of outsourcing actually never even got in my head. Wow. I didn't know anything about indie comic books. I had no clue that you could just pay artists to do stuff. Now, I'm not a complete idiot. I knew that I could probably find someone and some amount of money to draw all this stuff. I didn't know how vast this community was and how many artists were readily available and willing, to partake in this. Sorry, I just had dinner and it stuck in my throat. So there was that piece where I didn't know, and there was the financial aspect because actually this all came about right after I had lost my job. I had been I've never been unemployed. Now I did have a year where I didn't work and I was homeless. That was I was in a band at the time, and so everybody says when I do something 100%. And I looked at my finances one year and I said, hey, we're on tour for 3 months at a time. Those times we're not here, I'll live in my car. I'm used to living in a vehicle because we're on tour so much. So I'll just crash in my car. I would crash at like Walmart parking lots, and I would use like truck stops and stuff. But this was the first time I had ever like lost a job, and I had a wife and a child at the time, and it really hit me hard financially.
Right.
And so luckily my wife was like, hey, I've been working. I've been working since I was 13 years old. Well, really 12, but I didn't really start, making money until I was 13. I was a gas station attendant. I've done everything you think of, from selling vacuums to cleaning countertops. And she said, you've worked really hard. Instead of just jumping into a job that you're not going to like again, find something you love. But she said, take this time, relax. We had a little bit of money put aside. She was working. And I just started playing video games and looking for a job. So when we got the job, I wasn't going to put all that money into my hobby when I hadn't been working I was out of work for 3 months.
Right.
And if I had gone to her and been like, hey, cool, I got a new job. Now I'm going to drop all this money into artists to draw something that, I should probably be putting money aside to buy a house.
Right.
We were living in my mother-in-law's basement at the time. So if I wanted to stay married, I had to learn how to draw.
Right. That's fantastic. I mean, so from the moment you said, I'm going to train myself, how long did it take you to build the confidence to say, now I'm ready to start doing sequential pages?
So there was no time in between. I just started doing it. There really wasn't a thought process. Somewhere in here, I have the first crit picture I drew. It's on lined paper. I was sitting in front of the TV and I just started sketching, and it's, for me, it's not great. So I'm not gonna. I couldn't even find it right now if I wanted to. We just reorganized the office.
Right.
And I looked at that and I sent it to the guys, and I got nothing back, and they're like, "That's cool." And so within a few days, I've collected action figures. They're all over my walls. I started putting action figures in poses that resembled what we were doing, and so my mother-in-law is an artist. She's a art teacher. She's has a whole art studio in the house we were living in. So I just went in the studio and I used all the lighting, and I just sat there and just started sketching. I had this Samsung tablet from work that had an art program in it, and it had a pen. So I just started doing it. There wasn't even let me train myself. I just said, hey, I can pose these figures how I want to draw, because people do. I see that done all the time, and I'll just start drawing my figures and the poses, and I'll redesign the figure and make it work. There just wasn't a real like transition. It just, hey, I want to do this. I'm bored. Right. I got nothing else to do, so why not? It doesn't cost any money to sit here and draw. And so I started. And I did 18 pages on the Samsung. And I remember being so proud of this work. And I sent it to my friends, and I was showing it off to like my father. Mind you, my father is the absolute best artist I've ever met. Growing up, he would sit there and doodle when we were eating on napkins. And those napkins still to this day have more detail and definition and interest in the art and talent than I've seen. And I don't say that just because he's my dad, but my father used to take an airbrush. He didn't even know how to airbrush things, and he airbrushed this picture of the Predator's face without the mask. And so that always inspired me. He's just been phenomenal. And so when I looked at that, and I was like so proud of this, and I thought it looked just like his stuff. My wife is also a phenomenal artist. We were in bed one night, and I'm showing her the tablet, and she's looking through. Now, backstory, my wife and I were best friends for 11 years before we even got married. We were married right around 4 years at this point in time. And so when she scrolls through and doesn't say much and then hands it back to me and says, it's okay. Most crushing moment in my entire life. Okay. and I say that I've
Yes.
been through quite a lot in my life, and to
Right.
have her hand that back to me and say, it's okay. And I put 3 months into those 18 pages. I researched and watched YouTube videos and did all this stuff. And to have her just say that was crushing. And so the very next day, I went out and I bought an iPad. And I said, well, Procreate seems to be like the coolest program out there. I have no idea. I went to the store, I played with it for 5 minutes, and I said, I'm buying it. So I had a Best Buy card, and it was around Christmas time, so I used that as my excuse on why I was dropping $1,000. And then what I did from there was I would start drawing the pages, and I would go to her and say, hey, what do I need to do better? And for the first 2.5, 3 books, it was right around the 4th book that she stopped helping. She would literally go in and erase things and move things and just destroy my artwork. And I was okay with it. So the first few pages, I was really hurt because I would put hours into these pages, and she would just go in and erase stuff or draw over top of it and say, hey, like this leg wouldn't be here. This arm isn't like this, because she's also a photographer. So she knows depth. She knows body movements, and she knows anatomy very, very well. And she would just destroy everything. And I was like, but you don't need to know all that. Like I come from the Rob Liefeld era where, you can have chests on chests on chests and then pouches everywhere. And that's not a knock on Rob. It's just, that's a style. Comic book style doesn't have to be accurate. And she said to me, well, you need to find your style then. Do you want to do inaccurate all the time? Because if that's what you want to do, then that's what you need to do. But she's like, your artwork looks like you're trying to be accurate. You're just not. And so I said, well, no, I would. The guys in my team are anime fans, not very much comic book fans. So when I went to them and said, hey, what kind of style should I go for? They're like, well, if you're going to do comic books, make it look good. That was the only thing. And the guy who plays Reach, Obi, actually absolutely hates Rob Liefeld so much that they got into a Twitter war. And Rob Liefeld made a video against him. And then he went into a Comic-Con and took a video of him peeing on Youngblood #1 in the Comic-Con that Rob had just signed.
Oh.
And years later, Rob actually did a video apologizing to OB for calling him all these names and saying happy birthday to him. So the only feedback I got from him was, don't be Rob Liefeld. Mind you, on my wall up here, I have a bunch of Rob's 90s stuff that I, really enjoy.
Rob Liefeld's very successful, so
exactly.
I'm just saying.
People can hate on him all they want, and I tell that to OB all the time. Like, you can
he was
hate
a rock
on the man,
star,
but
he was
he was in jeans commercials, and dude had like lines out the door. So I still consider him an influence of mine, and I just think it's funny that was the one piece of feedback I got from everybody. He was like, just if you're gonna do it right. And I just kind of dug into that. I know my anatomy is not always 100%. It's kind of tough, you're drawing things that don't really exist half the time, but I'd really try. And that's, I think, where I push my artwork the most. And that's the feedback I got from my wife and friends was just, always make it as good as I can. And after book 4, there was about 2 to 3 pages into book 4. And she said, I think you got it. She was like, I really don't need to change anything. She's like, you've shown me half the pages and I've made a few adjustments here and there. There was a foot. In book 4, she edited a foot. She was like, the foot looks like it's broken. And I said, okay, I'll fix it. And that's so my artwork journey really started just because I wanted to do it. There wasn't a transition. I just said one day I'm going to do this. And, thank God I have this support system I do and the friends and family that I do. I think they've really helped me get to where I'm at. But if not, I would have been putting out stuff thinking it was great. My kid laughs at me because she's a phenomenal artist as well. And she's always like, well, what do you think of this? I'm like, it's better than what I did. She's like, well, what you did before wasn't that great compared to what you do now. And she's 12. She's honest.
But that's part of the process, right? I've been drawing forever and I get better every day because I'm constantly pushing to get better every day. And because I get inspired by other creators. I could give you a list of creators that just, motivate me. And so that's part of the process. I think you the benefit that you had was the fact that you had an artistic family
Mhm.
around you to help train that eye, right? Because if you're new to the game, there's a lot of tools that you don't even know that you have in your arsenal that you
Yep.
have to pull out for the first time. So I thought that's a fascinating story. Um, since the last time we spoke, you launched Crit. Um, where are you now, and what can people expect from this campaign?
So artistically now, I think I finally found my groove with where I want to be. Um, so you had asked me about hiring people,
Right.
and when I first started, I'm a very self-aware person. So I know that I'm not the greatest. I don't pretend to be the greatest. But I did know that if I started drawing and inking and coloring, I was going to be just okay at both for a very, very long time.
Right.
It's hard to master two things at once. And so I've never colored my own books. I've done my own flats and things like that, but I've never actually colored my own books. And so this will be the first book where I actually color it as well. I've been practicing that for about a year now, and I've done quite a few pieces of my own outside of the comics. And so this book, I decided I was going to color it myself. So artistically, I feel on my line work, I've gotten to a point where I'm very comfortable with my line work and my um, how I direct my pages. Um, you know, I consider myself more of a director sometimes than a writer because I take the recordings of our game sessions and have to kind of see how that would look on paper. And I think going into my seventh book, I finally got it. Still room to go, but I really am proud to show people this book. Um, I'm 10 pages in right now, artwork wise, and every page I'm loving my panel work. I'm loving just my panel layouts. I'm testing waters with some of the layouts that I do because I love working in squares and rectangles, and I'm throwing in some circles and I'm trying to offset stuff. I listened to, you had spoken about people that inspire you. And my biggest inspiration is always going to be Todd McFarlane, not just because the man is a genius in everything that he does, but he inspired me on a bunch of podcasts he did where he talked about how he failed. He got letters of rejection so many times, and that never deterred him. And then when he got into the business, he never got like the head, like that big head, And that always spoke to me because a lot of people don't know I actually come from playing music. I was signed to a subsidiary of Sony Records, and I did that for about 6 years. And one of the reasons I left that group was because I was the only one that didn't think we were rock stars. We were playing Warped Tour, we were playing these big festivals, and there was some clout that could be thrown around.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I was like, 2 years ago, we were playing basements,
Right.
I've been homeless before. Like, I still can't really afford things I want because I'm doing this. Like, we're nobody, right? I'm not. Now, there were some shows like in Mexico where, they flipped a bus on us and like it was massive. I thought but in other countries, American music does very well.
Right.
In our own country, in our hometown, we bring 1,000 people. That's great. But I'm like, come on, guys. We still played basements in churches and did all these like small venues. We're nobody. And so I love the fact that Todd had that I'm a nobody mentality for a very long time. Right. And that kind of inspires me now. Like every book, I feel like nervous going into Kickstarter. Even though we're sitting at 42 people right now and I've only had the page up for a couple of days, I'm still like, oh man, are we going to make it?
Well, that's a good thing. I think I equate it to like a fighter, right? If you're not nervous before a fight, then something's wrong because that means you're destined to lose because the fear is what it creates the courage, right? The fear inspires because you want to make sure that you do everything you can to not lose, and I think that's just the right approach. It's just you can't be full-hearted and you can't assume that you learned everything because there's so much to learn.
When I started doing Crit, and I like to talk about this, I really hate asking people to buy something. I mean, It's my creation. The idea of people buying a book that I wrote and drew is a tough concept, because I don't like asking, hey, shell out $5. I don't know anybody's financial situation, right? Hey, give me $5 for this book about me and my friends being dumb. And when I go into every book, I want to give people the best I possibly can if I'm going to ask them for even $1, because I know what it's like to struggle paycheck to paycheck. And let's be real, a lot of people that are into this hobby, like collecting and hobbying and things, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to give me money for a book that you don't even know about, I want you to open that up and go, wow.
Right.
The coolest moments are when people will message me and not even just comment on the art, right? I've had reviews that talk about just the wow factor of the story. Like, I didn't expect this, right? Well, it's D&D. You can't expect anything. I might kill somebody next book. Who knows?
Right.
It might just happen. They rolled bad.
Right. I think with Kickstarter, I mean, I understand on 100%, because every Kickstarter that I launch, I'm always nervous. I'm always apprehensive. And I think the hard part is I don't look at it as people giving me money. I look at it as people investing in the brand, right? They're making an investment and they're getting something in return. It's almost like stock, right?
Mhm.
And so it gets better with time, and I'm on my 8th one now, right? So, but even though, I have people signed up, you never know how it's going to go. And it requires you to hustle. It requires you to work on skills that you didn't really want to have to do, right? You don't want to have to be a PR person. You don't want to be a door-to-door salesman, because it's a lot of communications. It's a lot of humility, right? And, but it's part of the game when you're independent and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build your brand. And it gets better over time. But every Kickstarter is going to give you stress. Every single one of them.
I mean, my first one, I failed. So, issue 1, the only reason I went to Kickstarter was because I had a friend of mine who's a tattoo artist. We actually played D&D together. And he's the one that showed me Procreate to begin with and got me into it. And so when I started drawing, he was going to color for me. Well, 2020 hit, and he had twins during the height of 2020. And so he had colored about 6 pages. He said, Chris, I can't do anymore. Like, I just can't. He was very nice about it. We're on good terms. But I got into the communities on Facebook, and I found someone, reasonably priced that would help me out. Problem was, I needed money. So I went to Kickstarter to afford her to do the colors. And that's the only reason I was even going to Kickstarter in the first place, was because of that.
Right.
Now we've kind of grown. You talk about an investment, and I want to touch base on something. 7-8 books. That's impressive in the indie community as it is, because a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to get past book 3.
Yeah.
I've done a lot. I do a lot of research. I'm one of these people who are like, if I want to do this, I want to know the ins and outs. I read IMDb on every movie I watch just because I want to know more.
Right.
And all the research I've done shows, creators really struggle to get past a book 3 because of how hard this is. So
right.
Commend, big commendation to you for going on 8 books and still going out there and doing that, because people aren't just, like you said, investing in you. They're getting a piece of you, right?
Yeah.
That artwork that we put out and the stories we create and the literal blood, sweat, and tears that we're going to put into these books to give to people, they're getting a piece of us. And with me, forever, every job I've had, everything I've ever done, if I'm going to do it and it's going to have my name on it, I want to be the best I possibly can. I got that from my dad. So, I have a bunch of tattoos on my arms, and when we were talking about tattoos, my dad's a phenomenal artist. I said, Dad, why don't you draw your own tattoos? And he said, well, because if I draw that tattoo today and I get it tattooed on me today, tomorrow I'm a better artist. And I look at that tattoo and I say, I can do it better. He said, but if somebody else does it, I know I got their best work right then and there. He said, I never know how far they go. They'll become better artists in 10 years. He goes, but that day I got the best work I could. He said, I can't critique somebody else in 10 years, but I'll critique myself really hard. And so he said, so make sure every time that you do something for somebody, you give it your best. And that was when I was a little kid. I was like 6 or 7, and that kind of stuck with me.
Fantastic.
And so that's what we go into every book. And so with this next book, it's called Caffeinated Chaos. And I have this group of friends, the Savage Sandbox, and they always say Chris always outdoes himself every book. And this is a problem I've had since I was in high school. If someone challenges me to do something, I'm going to be like, oh man, how do I do that?
Right.
Don't even ask the stupid stuff people have gotten me to do just because they said, oh, Chris can outdo himself. Chris got drunk at that concert and jumped off the stage and got kicked out. What's he going to do this time? Oh, he's going to climb 200 feet in the air. Yep, did it. Got kicked out of a concert for climbing up to say hi to a band. Yeah, just because they dared me to. So this Kickstarter, I challenged myself and I said, well, I had the D&D books last time. Right. I've had stuffed animals. I've had figures. I've had statues. Like the immense amount of swag that we have at this point is just out there. And in the book, the guys, they create their own coffee shop and energy drink brand. Because in D&D, you need a way to make money. Right. Adventuring is not cheap. You have to buy guns and you have to buy armor and like all these expenses. Right. It's supposed to be an escape from real life, and yet you're still paying taxes if you have a bad DM. So they created this brand, and I wanted to bring the brand to life. So actually, during the campaign last time, I started looking for an energy drink company that would allow me, that does like white label. And so we just had the taste test this weekend, and I finalized all the artwork. And so we're doing energy drinks. I'm elaborating more on the D&D theme. We're doing custom D&D like rolling trays with the D&D experience. So you can not just read the book, but you get the whole experience with the game. You can learn from us, and who knows? Maybe I even find someone's a better DM than me, and I learned something. But there you go. So maybe, and a lot of the goal here is to grow that brand and show people that we're not just sitting here messing around. Like, this is something I take very seriously now, as 7 books in, and my whole team does. We're always coming up with new cool ideas. So this issue, you're getting energy drinks, cool D&D stuff, lots of swag, t-shirts, because you can't have a Kickstarter without t-shirts and posters. So that's going on there. And as always, you're getting top-notch cover artists. I just announced 2 covers that I'm very proud of. I've got 2 more on the way before the campaign launches. And you're going to get a fun story. I always try to approach every book with a different directorial approach. I have film background too. Actually, we just won an award. I can't talk about it till October. They told me I can't talk about that, but we just won some film award with this group I work with. I literally just found out this afternoon. So I try to take like book 3, for instance. I want it to be a crime, like a criminal show, right? Where, like, if you watch a lot of like crime shows, they're always discussing things back and forth. And I watch a lot of CSI and stuff. And there was an episode I watched where they were actually detailing what they did throughout the episode. So you're seeing them after the fact. Right. And then you gotta get to relive everything with them, but they all have different versions of what happened. So you'd see the same scene in a few different versions. And that's what I tried to do with book 3. Was there's a couple pages where they're arguing about what just happened, because that really did happen in the game. Right. And so as I'm listening, I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this like a crime show. And then, book 2 was like this high-paced chase scene. So it's like gotta be, action-based. Book 4 was detective, so I had to take a more like slow approach and allude to a lot of things instead of giving you the enemy out the gate. And then book 5 was literally just pedal to the floor, because book 5 closes out the chapter of chapter 1. So I really wanted this overarching story that would not just give every character room to breathe and show off some of their uniqueness, but also hit home on some of the important parts of the story. Have comedy, because you can't have our D&D show without comedy. And then also have these very like hard-hitting action moments that can display the amount of power these guys have gotten from book 1 to book 5. because the biggest thing in D&D is leveling your character up and getting new powers.
Right.
So I try to showcase that. Book 6 is just the evolution of that. We're going to have, we have more characters. So, if you read book 5, you get introduced to Pan and Archimedes, so the talking owl and the talking chameleon. So our Pokemon master, Austin over there, he gets his new companions. And the fun part for me is I get to draw Caliber the entire time in a barista outfit fighting a big giant robot. So he loses his grenades and he doesn't have his guns, and he, because in game, as I was listening, he actually screwed up and didn't bring his weapons. And so he goes in to fight this big giant robot. He's like, I'm gonna pull my guns. And I'm like, did you bring them? Well, I assume I had them. You didn't tell me you brought them. So you and I record everything. So I brought the recording, and it was like, you literally just said you are just you in a barista outfit. You didn't say anything about weapons. Therefore, you have nothing but coffee in your bag. And so he starts throwing coffee at the robot. That's what you get from us. It's always a fun ride. And I always try to make it as unique. I don't want you to read the same book twice.
That's fantastic. Now, you talked about, your R&D phase. You talked about your merchandising. Now, what's your plan to really communicate it out to the masses?
Well, doing shows like this for the next 2 months. That's the hardest part, is getting it out there. I'm trying to look into paid banner ads.
Right.
I'm doing a few in-store events here in North Carolina. I've got a fandom page up now, so I'm hoping that gets a little bit of traction. We've had actually some unique hits off of that. We're actually scoring very high on Google right now too, so I've gotten a lot of traffic on our website, which has directed over into sales and onto our Kickstarter. So that's been good. And these just literally getting on as many shows as possible and talking to people, because Instagram is great, but you're going to get lost in the algorithm. Same with Facebook, same with Twitter. And I'm tired of posting these images, because our book is a lot more than just the artwork and the cool characters in it. It's what I really want to convey is the D&D aspect, and how this is not just a superhero story. It's actually an adventure with the superhero facade, because they're not really super. They kind of get their butts beat every time they think they are. And that's what I want to do, is just get out there as much as possible and tell people, if I could rent a banner on top of IGN or one of those big places and be like, hey, it's not your average story. I would, but it's just, that's very expensive. And
IGN.
I've looked just to see, some comic book sites that get lots of hits.
Yeah.
And either they don't have space right now, or they're just way too expensive. For a little 200 by 200 image. Facebook marketing isn't that great. I've messed around with that. I'm sure everybody knows. Usually we ignore the thing that says sponsored. I actually have a degree in marketing and design. And so the one thing I am doing with this one is I have an entire retail tier. So, if you follow us enough and have seen, we're part of the Savage Sandbox. I'm one of the creators of the Savage Sandbox. And we have distribution through Golden Distribution. It's a worldwide distributor for board games and hobby things. I think they're the number 4 in the United States for hobbyists. And we have over 1,500 stores. I think we're in about 90 stores now. So, which is really good.
Right.
What I wanted to do with this one was attract some more retailers by having a retail tier. So they get books at a lower cost, because if you've dealt with retail, you can't sell a comic book store your book for $5. You've got to sell your comic book for like $3, because they have to have markup on there.
Right.
And we have retail only covers. And so I'm doing an entire retail package to try and grow that retail side of it, and also give the rest of my team, the Savage Sandbox, a chance with our Kickstarter to, get their books out there as well. And I've talked to a few retailers that want to partner up on that, which is really cool. I think that's everybody's goal, is to get into more hands. And the only way you can do that is, shelf space.
Right.
So yeah, I'm trying out a few different things. If it works, great. end of the day, the book's going to get made because I got to give my guys a copy of the story.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So we're at that stage where I'm going to give you the screen, and I want you to give your elevator pitch and tell everybody why they need to sign up and back Crit Caffeinated Chaos AD&D Adventure Story. So here you go. Go for it.
So why should you back Crit on Kickstarter? Well, for one, it's a fun story, not just because I wrote it, but because I got to experience it. Our entire story is written through playing Dungeons and Dragons. So everything that you read on the page happened in real life at a table. And it's a bunch of friends getting together and literally just having fun. So the entire story is about these guys who have gained powers, and you watch their adventure as they learn about these powers, face a bunch of challenges, and actually take on, this ancient evil that's about to destroy the world. And in this issue of Crit, they're battling a big giant robot, and the worst thing of all, which is becoming a small business owner and the challenges that come with it. So if you're into adventure, sci-fi, and any kind of like modern storytelling, check it out. Crit Kickstarter. It is going to be 26 pages of just fun, chaotic, caffeinated chaos.
Outstanding. Again, thank you again for being on the show. Get much success. You have a solid plan. You have a solid strategy. Same as last time. What I love about doing the shows, we get to see the evolution and watch as you guys grow, which is fascinating. That's always inspiring, and much success. And I can't wait to see your game in the masses.
Well, hey, if you have any questions about that D&D book, you just message me.
Absolutely.
I would love to, turn you on to Dungeons and Dragons. That's, like I said, that's one of the coolest things about it, is being able to expose people to something, that is, I hold so close to my heart. And again, thank you guys for having me on. You and I met when I was launching issue 3, which is also the same time I launched issue 0. I did those back to back, and everything you guys do for the community. I know me and my guys, Victor, a few other guys that I think have been on here, and we all love what you're doing. And congratulations on 8 books. That's a feat in itself. And I love seeing how you guys progress as well, because every show is, I can tell the production quality is getting better and better, and you guys are just killing it. So keep it up too. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. And again, you're always welcome back anytime. And again, much success to you and to your team.
Cool. I got issue 7 launching. I'm taking a break. I work in taxes. So January through April, I decided I was going to give myself a break, because last year I launched a campaign in that period. Oh man, that was rough. So I will be back on Kickstarter next April after this. And I might even have 2 books at launch at the same time for that one. So we'll be in touch as always.
You got it, brother. Have a nice day.
You too.
Peace. Yeah, so that was Christopher, and again, it's Crit Caffeinated Chaos AD&D Adventure Story on Kickstarter. The link is in the summary. Sign up today. It launches in a couple of weeks. If you haven't done so already, if you like this episode, give us a thumbs up. Right? Subscribe if you haven't done so already. When we grow, indie community grows. More eyes on us, that means more eyes on the people that we have on our show. Sorry, George couldn't be. And I don't know what's going on with my computer. But again, I have a campaign going on right now, and I need you. It's called this number 3. Do I have you? My computer right now, but sign up today, pledge today, get yourself a copy. If you have kids, there's phenomenal stuff. There's a for those youngins that want to draw, or even if you're an artist and you want a custom. Well, there's a lot of cool stuff on this campaign. I do appreciate your support. More eyes on us, and I've been working on it for over a decade, and its duty is everything to me. And your support and your investment is So with that said, this was another show on Catch the Craze podcast. That was talking about Crit. I'm Sam, the crazy man Vera, and we.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce.
No, it's talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met
Say my name,
right? This is what you were thinking? Oh,
He described me. He said, I'm the.
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze. Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.
Candy girl.